Hi everyone, Sammy here, welcome back to another video, and today I want to do a video that I wanted to do for a long time. So I want to talk about a lens today, the Thypoch Simera 75mm 1.4. This one is for Leica M mount and I have it in silver. Now this lens was not sent to me by Thypoch because they wanted me to make a review. I actually asked them to send me a lens so I can test it. Because when they asked me to review the 21mm Simera lens, I also asked for this because I did not own any portrait lens. And I noticed that when I do event shoots or, my documentary projects, then it would be nice to have a portrait lens, a lens that is very flattering when you take portraits. So I was very curious to try this one out. First, I wanted to use this lens for portraiture or maybe even street photography. I think they really wanted me to do some street photography with this lens, which I tried because 75mm is actually a cool focal length. I like it more than 85, but I struggled finding good compositions because I wasn't used to 75 anymore. First time I had a 75 equivalent on a street photography setup was when I was using a Leica 50mm M lens, a very small one, Simera I think, adapted onto a Fujifilm crop sensor camera. And that was so much fun. I remember that I liked the small 75mm setup. Now this is not as small anymore. I have it on the adapter here because I'm using Nikon Z cameras as my mirrorless cameras. I don't have any Leica M mount cameras. So it becomes a much longer lens. It's not really compact. Without the hood, it is like this. So it's fine, it's totally fine. It's a fully manual focus lens, obviously. 1.4 aperture, creamy bokeh, as all the Simera lenses do have. I'm also not much of a spec guy, so I will show you some specs here on the screen. I want to talk more about my user experience and the results. I want to show some results. So yeah, I tried a bit of street photography. I like the experience. It has a distance scale that is very unique. When you stop down the lens, then these dots get filled with red. So you get an idea how wide your focus range is. The aperture ring feels super good. You can declick it. Focusing is super smooth. No focusing tab on this lens, but I think it's fine. Has enough texture. I also like that it comes with a lens hood, which is very useful. You can still use filters if you want to, but not really a variable ND filter, which I use a lot for video. And this is how it looks with the lens hood on the Nikon ZF. I think it looks very good. It's nicely balanced. It's a bit top heavy, but that's okay. You can comfortably hold the camera on the lens. It also comes in black. I chose silver because for me this is not a stealthy lens. I don't want to do like stealthy street photography. This to me is like a portrait lens. So it's okay if people see the lens. And I like silver lenses. I'm just not too confident using silver lenses on the street most of the times. So what ended up happening was that I thought that I would use it for street photography a lot, besides using it also as a portrait lens for my documentary projects or jobs. But then I ended up using it more and more for video because all the Simera lenses, the whole lineup, they all have very pleasing bokeh. I mean, you can see it in the photos already, but when you film with these lenses, they have a quality to them that is, I don't want to say cinematic because that's kind of an overused term. What does it even mean, cinematic? The background kind of melts away and it looks like your subject is in water. It also has very good clarity. There's also good micro contrast. When you film or take photos wide open, this lens is not the sharpest. It is very sharp, very usable wide open. And for a portrait lens, it's just the right amount of sharpness. When I did take a few portraits, I did take some street portraits, you can see that at 1.4, it is not crazy sharp, but it has good sharpness, but it's also not soft looking. And I like the transition from sharp to not sharp. The transition is very nice. Sometimes the bokeh is too much, especially when I do like a headshot. Then 1.4 sometimes is too much. And then I stop it down to 2.8 maybe, and it becomes extremely sharp. What's nice about these Simera lenses is, and all the other lenses also do that, is when you stop them down, the aperture blades remain very round because there are a lot of aperture blades in this lens, in all the Simera lenses. So usually with a vintage looking manual-focused lens, you have to be more careful when you stop down because the background blur starts to become a bit more busy, less pleasing to the eye. But with these Simera lenses, you can always stop them down and the background still looks very smooth. So that's another huge plus. So for video, it's amazing because you can stop down the lens and still create nice looking background blur, but remaining a lot of sharpness in your frame. But yeah, I've been using this lens as my beauty lens, my cinematic beauty lens, and also my interview lens, my close-up interview guest lens. For example, I produced a bunch of videos for Ricoh Imaging for their YouTube channel. And in a lot of these, I was using the 75 Simera. And I would always use two lenses, one wide angle and one close-up. And this 75 was always my close-up lens. So obviously, it's manual focus only, this lens, so you have to pre-focus. But then I would often film at aperture 2.0, not 1.4. Because then when your subject moves, your subject can easily be out of focus. So f2 is a kind of a nice middle ground where you still have a lot of bokeh in the background. I mean, the results hopefully speak for themselves. Not all the clips I'm showing you here were shot wide open, but it's a very beautiful look. I like the roll-off of the highlights also. Sometimes the bokeh balls get a little bit of texture in them, or they're not completely flat. I'm not quite sure what that is. Maybe this is a reflection of the lens, something reflected in the lens. You could say that sometimes the bokeh looks a bit boring. It's not the anamorphic lens, it doesn't have that much character. It has enough character so it doesn't look like your generic, 24 to 72.8 lens. It looks unique enough so that I use it for those beautiful looking clips that I don't have any other lens that can create this kind of look. So I use this lens for videography a lot, and I really love it for that. I also use this lens a lot for my own YouTube videos, especially when I like to get separation from me and the background when I'm filming myself. Put the camera on the tripod, and then maybe you can see almost completely my whole body. I can be able to create this depth, which I can create with a lens that is not as fast as this one. 75mm is also a very good focal length to show things the way they are without much distortion. When you film with a 50 on full frame, it's not close enough, it's not tight enough, it's not long enough. Sometimes it still feels a bit too wide. And especially when you film products or film close-ups of products, a 75 is just, it's not so long that it looks like a macro lens, but it's also not so wide that it looks like you're just going close with the camera. So I like 75 for that. I guess when you do photography with a 75, you can think in a similar way. You can take photos of people, like full body shots, can still separate them from the background. I'm just not used to thinking in 75mm framing. I'm always too close when I do street photography with a 75. You could totally use it for street photography, but I think for street photography, I would prefer a smaller lens because I would stop down my lenses anyways. So for me, this is really just a production lens for my video productions and a very special lens for portraits. And for that, it's very solid. I don't need autofocus for portraiture. It works extremely well on the Nikon ZF. As you might know, it has very good focus aids, eye detection. It all works wonderful on the ZF. So another thing I tried, which is also very cool, is adapting this lens onto a Hasselblad medium format camera. Because these Simera lenses cover the entire sensor of a Hasselblad X2D or maybe a GFX 100 something, they all have the same sensor size. These lenses cover the whole sensor. Full frame lenses usually don't cover more than full frame because they don't need to. But somehow Thypoch made these Simera lenses wider, so they function on medium format cameras. And if you don't mind, using electronic shutter and manual focus on the Hasselblad, this lens looks super beautiful on an X2D camera body, for example. I wish I could show you more portrait examples, but I only have some photos of my son, which I don't want to show. I had one shoot planned with a ballet dancer and her partner, which could have been cool, but unfortunately it didn't work out. I don't have the X2D anymore. But that's something that you could easily do. Use these Simera lenses on those medium format cameras. Yeah, it's crazy because this lens does resolve 100 megapixels easily. I can show you some examples, wide open and stop down, and the images are so sharp. So yeah, it punches way above its, what's the word? Punches above its weight? Yeah, I think that's it. I'm thinking about negative things to say about this lens, which is totally cool. I'm allowed to say what I want to say about this lens, but can't really find any flaws other than, you know, it's not your most compact lens. Build quality is good. Handling is good. I have noticed some chromatic aberration, but to be honest, I don't care about that. You can easily fix that in post. Yeah, it's just a very solid lens. I can definitely recommend it if you don't mind manual focusing, of course. But I'd rather have something like this in my kit than like a big mirrorless autofocus lens that might be more convenient. Of course, if you only do headshots and portrait photography and weddings, maybe you better get an autofocus lens. But for me, who occasionally takes portraits and likes to manual focus for video, this is like made for me, you know. And I don't know who I would compare this lens to. Maybe there's a Voigtlander 75. I think there is one. I have never used it. It's probably also an amazing lens. But what I know that I will get from this lens instead of the Voigtlander, just based on the construction that I see, is that I get the consistency with the aperture blades. And that, to me, for video making, for filmmaking, is huge. The Voigtlander might be sharper, who knows? Might be sharper at 1.4. I don't know. I don't have that lens. But that's not what's so important for me. I like the organic look that I'm getting with this lens. Wide open, even for photography. So, okay. That should be it. If you have any more questions about this lens, let me know. Maybe I can answer those questions. And sorry again, Thypoch, for letting you wait. It was almost a year since I asked for this lens. I really enjoy using it. I'm going to continue using it. It's going to continue to be my workhorse lens, as it has been. Yeah, it's solid. And it works perfectly on the Nikon ZF. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.